Yeah, what up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video for the Josh Taylor Jack Catterall fight. Now I'm gonna get the results out the way first. Taylor won via split decision, in which many people consider a controversial decision, because most people thought that Catterall did enough to win the fight. I included, because I personally had the fight scored in favor of Catterall, 114 to 112, but that's not how the judges saw it though. Judges thought that Taylor did enough to win the fight, and yeah. This fight kind of reminded me of another undisputed title fight at super welterweight between Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano that took place last year. It took place in the hometown of Charlo in Texas, and from what y'all remember, if y'all haven't watched that fight, go watch that fight. Charlo was outworked by Castano, and Castano should have became the super welterweight champion that night, but the judges scored it a draw. Now, another fight that was somewhat similar to this fight as far as the controversy when it comes to the judges, was John Ryder and Danny Jacobs. That fight happened very recently. I made a whole video on that fight, covering that fight. If y'all want to go check that out, go check that out. If y'all want to go watch that fight, go watch that fight. But once again, the hometown man, he was awarded the win in a close fight, where most people thought that the man coming into the hometown of his opponent should have won the fight. But they always say in every fight, try not to leave the fight up to the judges, but especially when it comes to big fights, big championship fights, and you're the underdog or the challenger fighting at the champion or the favorite's hometown, you especially don't want to give them kind of fights away to the judges, because most of the times it's not going to go in your favor, and it was a case for this fight. Now, without any further ado, let me get into the analysis of this fight, give y'all my breakdown on this fight. Josh Taylor, 18-0 heading into this fight, undisputed super lightweight champion, winner of the World Boxing Super Series tournament at 140 pounds. After conquering all the titles at super lightweight, this was his big return home fight in front of his hometown peoples. Jack Catterall, 26-0 mandatory challenger, lesser known British fighter, good boxer, puncher. This was a fight that was looked forward to by a lot of boxing fans. It didn't go like how I expected. I thought Taylor would outbox Catterall and win a decision win, but Catterall fought a better fight. He fought a good, solid fight. His defense was on point. His counterpunching was on point. He outworked Taylor on the inside, out-jabbed the taller Taylor, and countered the counterpuncher, and had the range, fought at the range he wanted the fight to be fought at, and that straight left was working like a charm throughout the whole fight. That straight left was finding his mark the whole fight. Josh Taylor's right hand, his lead right hand, would be guarded very low, exposing his face for that left hand to hit him the whole fight. And yeah, that should have earned Catterall that win, but it didn't. But it doesn't mean Josh Taylor was completely out the fight, because I had the fight score 7-5 in favor for Catterall. And Catterall, where he messed up at, I think, is the championship rounds, because he kind of stepped off the pedal a little bit and just didn't throw anything, and was hugging and holding Taylor. I don't know if it was his corner telling him, hey, you got the fight in the bag, play it safe, which would have been the wrong advice, because, like I said in the beginning part of the video, that's like kind of leaving it up to the judges. You want to fight your ass off from beginning to the end, because, of decisions like this. And or it could have been fatigued, and also what could have messed Catterall up on the official scorecards could have been the 10th round, where a point was deducted by the referee for holding Taylor too much, which neutralized the 8th round knockdown that he scored over Taylor after catching Taylor on the inside with a beautiful right hook, flooring Taylor, making it a 10-8 round. But that 10th round, I had scored it 10-8 for Taylor, which should have been a regular 10-9 round. But if y'all was watching the ESPN broadcast, Andre Ward scored that 10th round 9-9. But that was a unnecessary point being deducted by the ref. I thought the referee was involved a little too much, more than he should have had for sure. Yeah, so bad officiating and bad judging throughout this fight, for this fight that is. And Taylor, the abilities that he's been praised for throughout his career wasn't at display, like his ring brilliance, his boxing IQ, and his counterpunching ability. Like that pullback counter was his key to win against Ramirez. That none of those was on display in this fight. The counterpuncher Josh Taylor was getting counterpunched. He's an aggressive fast starter, but he looked anxious from the beginning of the fight. And definitely more aggressive and anxious and desperate towards the mid and end, especially after the knockdown. But after the 10th, it kind of calmed down. But he still fought hard and aggressive. But he made more errors throughout this fight because he was more aggressive and anxious than he usually is, which left him more open to be countered for his mistakes. And Josh Taylor, I don't know. I'm not going to make no excuses for him. Mind you, this fight was supposed to happen in December, but it got delayed due to the fact that he had tested positive for COVID, and he got injured during this training camp, so there was that delay. But he had 3 months to prepare for it. It could have been ring rust, or it could have just been the fight that Catterall fought that neutralized Josh Taylor's abilities to fight the fight he wanted to fight. And yeah, Josh Taylor's jab just wasn't working throughout this fight. That's like his establishment to find his range to have the fight have the range to be fought at the range he wants the fight to be fought at. Like I said, Catterall's jab was more efficient than Taylor's jabs. And you look at the punch stats, Catterall was outlanding Taylor throughout majority of the fight. Now, as far as the future goes for both fighters, I know Top Rank wants that rematch between Taylor and Ramirez. Ramirez, I think, got a fight coming up next week or two, depending on how he performs and if he wins. They want that rematch. That's probably the next fight for Josh Taylor, because when the interviewer asked Josh Taylor, does he want a rematch with Catterall, he said no. He thought he clearly won the fight. But if he's willing to give Ramirez that rematch, I don't know why he would be hesitant. Well, I know why he would be hesitant. It's kind of obvious why he would be hesitant to give Catterall that rematch. But I think Catterall will be more deserving than Ramirez to challenge Taylor for his undisputed titles for a rematch, because Taylor clearly won that fight against Ramirez. And this fight, there's a lot of questions in the air with Catterall being the should-have winner in this fight. So with that being said, I think he should give Catterall that rematch. This would be a huge fight anywhere in England or Scotland. Catterall should have scored that potential upset of the year win. But hey, it didn't happen. And yeah, as far as Catterall goes, he catapulted himself up to the top dogs level at 140 pounds. He's still not, the champion, even though he should have. But yeah, it's still names out there for him to fight. He could fight Regis Progress, who's also been wanting that rematch with Josh Taylor after their meeting for the finals of the tournament, of the Super Series tournament at super lightweight. Him versus Regis Progress would be a hell of a fight. And he could also fight other guys like Sandor Martin, who's coming off an upset win over Mikey Garcia, or Mikey Garcia he could fight as well. He could also fight, Adrian Broner, who could fluctuate between 147 and 140 pounds. There's Conor Ben, and there's other, England's got the most healthy local scene when it comes to the sport of boxing. he could continue building his momentum and his name up throughout the market by fighting locally in England until he gets that rematch for that undisputed title. If Taylor decides to, stick around at 140 pounds, I think he for sure should after this fight, because there's been talks of him wanting to move up to 147 after winning all those titles. But we'll just see. But for sure, Catterall, in my opinion, is deserving of another title shot, without a question. That being said, y'all let me know what y'all thoughts are of this fight in the comments. Subscribe, hit the like button, share, all that good stuff. Anyways, y'all be safe, be healthy, and peace.